This chair is very weird. Sorry.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today. I'm pleased to welcome you to today's COP28 Presidency Press Conference. My name is Sara Al-Mahri. I'm the Director of Diplomatic Engagement at COP28. Before we begin, please ensure your mobile phones are on silent mode, and we kindly request that you hold your questions until the end of the remarks and limit your questions to one. We will only be taking questions from media. Without further ado, let me introduce our panel of speakers for today. His Excellency Ambassador Majid Swedi, COP28 Director General, Her Excellency Shamma Al-Mazrou'i, Minister of Community Development of the UAE and COP28 Youth Climate Champion, Marlina Aroy, COP28 Youth Climate Delegate of Nauru, Rushil Khandelwal, Global Coordinator of Youngo. Also joining us on stage is Alex Sayer from the UNFCCC, who will participate in the Q&A. Now, Ambassador Majid, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sara, and good morning, everybody. I hope that you were able to have a wonderful rest day yesterday. I see that you all look very fresh and energized. We are going to try to go fairly quickly today because we have half an hour before the plenary, which will be starting soon, so we want to make sure that everybody can get to that. I'll try to go quickly as well. We want to give a quick recap of what happened last week, and then I'll hand over to our colleagues we have for what will be a very, very exciting day. We're entering the second half of our action agenda, and I'm delighted that we're beginning with the Youth Engagement and Education Day on the first day of the second week. I've been really passionate about this topic this year, and we've got the great leadership from our COP champion, youth champion, who's been with us and who will get the chance to speak. We've really demonstrated the spirit of consensus over the last week. In total, the COP presidency has mobilized over $83 billion, setting the pace for a new era in climate action and making a real difference in people's lives and livelihoods. We facilitated a historic agreement on loss and damage, and since we've seen pledges of $720 million. There's a strong emphasis on the private sector with our $30 billion Altera Catalytic Fund, and we've unlocked $200 million of SDRs. The World Bank announced its increase of $9 billion annually to finance climate-related projects, and other multilateral development banks announced a cumulative increase of over $22.6 billion towards climate action. We saw a further $3.5 billion of additional replenishment into the Green Climate Fund and announced $133.6 million towards the Adaptation Fund. We also achieved historic and transformational support for 11 new pledges and declarations, including the first ever declaration on food systems transformation and health, plus declarations on renewable energy and efficiency and decarbonizing heavy emitting industries. As we've said from the start, we're doing things differently in Dubai. We're setting out to make COP28 the collective COP, the COP that brought everyone together in order to change the game. And that includes young people. Youth empowerment is ingrained in our culture here in the UAE, and it's something we're immensely proud of and something that we want to embed in the COP process. Many of you already know Her Excellency Shamma Al-Mazrou'i, who is here with us today, was the youngest Minister of State in the world when she was appointed. Today, she is our COP28 Youth Climate Champion, and we're calling for this role to be institutionalized in future COPs. Ultimately, it is young people who have the most to lose from climate change, and it is future generations who will inherit some of the greatest challenges, which is why they need to be wholly integrated into the process. They need to be educated, informed, and empowered, and they need to set the policy. As soon as we took on the COP28 presidency, the UAE was determined to make this COP the turnaround COP for youth engagement, and that's exactly what we've done. We've partnered with Youngo to provide unprecedented support to the largest ever youth climate delegate program focused on LDCs and SIDS, and many of the youth climate delegates are now offering valuable contributions to help shape the decision resulting from COP28. I'm pleased to be joined by Marlina Aroy, one of our youth climate delegates, and Rushil Khandelwal, a member of the Youngo Global Coordination Group, who will shortly share their insights into this process. Today, we see the inaugural Youth Stocktake Report, a comprehensive analysis of youth involvement in climate diplomacy that will present best practice and a strategic blueprint on enhanced youth participation. And we're also hosting the Green Skills Fair, the Dubai Dialogue, and the Rewired Summit, all designed to mainstream youth inclusion at COP. Briefly on negotiations, the COP President will hold a formal plenary at 10 o'clock to outline the way forward to accelerate and complete our work in the next 5 days to bring the conference to a successful close by 11 a.m. on the morning of December 12th. Our COP President is very clear that this is how we need to finish. This will include an approach to conclude all outstanding elements, recognizing that some need more discussion and others require focused political engagement to find an overall balanced and comprehensive way forward. We will also outline in further detail the work of the ministerial pairs who have conducted political consultations on his behalf for the past few months. The ministerial pairs will join the COP President at a press conference in this room at 12:30 today. We urge negotiators to bring the same spirit of compromise and flexibility into week 2 so that together we can deliver an ambitious outcome across all negotiated tracks by December 12th. Lastly, before I turn the microphone over, a quick message to the young people here today. We need you to play an active role across this week. Your voices are critical, and we need you to be part of this process. In our negotiations team, there are more than 2/3 of the team who are under the age of 35. So this is a youth COP presidency. We understand the enormous potential and power of youth, and we encourage each of you to contribute to an ambitious decision, not only for this COP, but to lay the foundation for multilateral processes going forward. So with that, I'll pass over to Sarah to continue with the meeting.
Thank you, Ambassador Majid. Your Excellency Shema, you have the floor.
Thank you all so much for being here today. So, as His Excellency mentioned, the COP28 presidency set a very high bar for itself when it comes to ensuring meaningful youth inclusion throughout the full UNFCCC process cycle over this year, and also during COP28. And this is, to be honest, second nature to the United Arab Emirates, whose leadership continues to place big bets on young people and trusts them and empowers them to lead and gives them the tool and the means to do so. And that's why the presidency created a dedicated role for the Youth Climate Champion within the higher COP28 leadership team to champion, to relay the voices of young people directly to the presidency and ensure that young people have meaningful avenues to participate in international climate decision-making. Now, the YCC role is very critical to address the core needs and challenges that young people face. And His Excellency mentioned a couple, but this is the most inclusive youth COP ever, whether it's youth from indigenous communities, LDCs, SIDS, youth with disabilities, youth from displaced and conflict areas, etc. But also, it's a big turnaround in terms of affordability, accessibility to COP, support for logistics, expanding the platforms to connect with decision makers and share their policy proposals. And I want to talk about some of the events today as well. But also, turnaround for capacity building of young people, free educational resources for youth to be prepared to enter the COP negotiations on a level playing field, ready to contribute meaningfully and effectively. And we sought especially to elevate the issues that youth have highlighted that have never been adequately addressed in COP, hosting the first presidency events addressing the impact of climate change on young people's mental health, the challenges of youth leading climate action in conflicted and affected areas. Now, before I tell you about today's Youth and Skills Day, I want to stress that the COP28 presidency made sure to integrate youth across the whole 2 weeks of COP, and all thematic days had a youth component to truly mainstream youth inclusion. What's today? Today is meant to empower young people to shape outcomes of COP and beyond, while also acknowledging and considering the disproportionate risks and impacts of climate change for children and youth. The day will look at equitable representation, stronger engagements and mechanisms and inclusion of youth in policy making, capacity building, connecting them to resources, supporting youth-led innovation and climate action, transforming education to close the skills gap, as His Excellency mentioned, the Green Skills event. There is the youth stocktake, which is, to be honest, I'll just give you a brief. The youth stocktake process goes back to the partnership in Bonn with Youngo, a first of its kind research role and piece to really explain a full history of youth engagement across all UNFCCC process to identify all the challenges, best practices and recommendations for better support and accountability mechanisms and evaluation for youth. So we're pleased that this report is going to be launched today. The youth dialogue forum that's happening today is very critical between youth and parties, which was mandated at COP26. It was called for since Youngo and all youth civil society typically speak only last in negotiations and often don't even have a chance to speak. This forum ensures that there's dedicated time and space for young people to have detailed policy discussions with parties. This will make it the most expansive, most meaningful engagement between youth and parties because we've not done it only for today, we've done it across the 8 thematic breakouts over week 1 of COP28. Health and security dialogue, loss and damage youth dialogue, finance, biodiversity, adaptation, technology, just transition, and the list goes on in NDCs and cities, and food and water security. The other great exciting thing that's happening today is to address our other youth day themes is on climate education. We have an incredible amount of learning and capacity building opportunities across COP. And we have the Green Education Hub today that is going to offer live support, especially for youth to understand the complex negotiation processes. On green skills, as His Excellency mentioned, we have the first ever Green Skills Career Fair. And we also have the Market for Future, which will connect young people to business, to philanthropy, to other supporters as well. And finally, there's also the Climate Change, Youth, Peace and Security. We are very proud to have children attending here at COP and hope these sessions will kickstart stronger support for children living under climate change for the long term. So the thing I want to mention is this Youth Climate Champion role is not a nice sounding title. It's not tokenistic. A lot of what we've been able to accomplish this year has been possible because of the platform of the Youth Climate Champion role and the team behind this role. We've developed a comprehensive strategy focusing on enhancing youth participation in climate processes, leveraging COP to spur youth-led climate action, relaying and amplifying youth's voices and policy proposals within the presidency, UNFCCC and beyond, and instilling education and empowering youth's capacity to usefully and meaningfully contribute to decision-making. We believe, as the UAE, that Youth Climate Champion role and structure can deliver these urgent youth needs sustainably for all future COPs, not just COP28. And there is growing momentum around this vision. I'm happy to say that many of the partners that we have collaborated with over this year hope to continue to support this role. Importantly, this includes philanthropies. The delivery of any role depends on good funding behind the role to make the real impact possible. So financial commitments to support this role and its associated projects have been pledged by the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, the Tony Elemu Foundation, the Hilton Foundation, the Philanthropy Asia Alliance, and a personal commitment by His Excellency Badr Jafar, the COP28 Special Representative for Business and Philanthropy. And a lot would be willing to support the role financially in future years. So this leaves us, hopefully, with the possibility for COP28 to not only deliver a transformational youth action and inclusion, but also to set the pathway for sustainable, consistent, strong support for youth inclusion for future COPs. Creating something new is easy, but creating something sustainable is challenging. And the UAE loves challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for these very fruitful remarks and for everything you've done over the past year. Marlana, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to briefly go over what I do on the island of my country and what it means to be a youth of the Youth Delegate Program. So I work in the Climate Change and National Resilience Department in my country, and I work on a project called the HGI, which is the Higher Grounds Initiative. So this project started in 2019 and is basically a plan to build a smart, sustainable village on the elevated parts of our island so that people in the coastal communities affected by climate change and king tides and sea level rise can migrate to. And this will provide precedence over what happens to the rest of the land through our land use master plan. So being here at COP, so I come from a small Pacific island nation called Nauru. We are just a tiny dot on the map, and many may have not even heard of it until now. So imagine being a youth of that somewhat unknown island. My fears and my concerns, along with all the other thousands of Nauruans, are also unknown. But being here at COP28 and being a part of this youth delegate program, I am fortunate because I realize I am not just one voice or one person representing a tiny island, but in fact, I am one of the many here today representing the youths and children of the world, 1.3 billion, all of us, 1.3 billion strong. So I just want to say, I want to thank all those people who have fought hard in this climate fight. But as youths, we must embrace the present now.
Represents more than 700,000 youth inputs from 160 countries around the world, with UNFCCC language-oriented demands that can feed in directly to the negotiations that are actionable and feasible. The youth, in all our diversity, represent a body that enriches the context in which we are involved. We also bear the largest long-term impacts of climate change. Yet, until COP28, we had not been meaningfully included in the conversation. COP28 has made strides in the right direction, with Youngo and YCC acting hand in hand to bolster meaningful and substantive youth engagement, and the presidency encouraging and supporting us. Youth inclusion is at an all-time high. Over the conference, we will have held 10 total Youth Climate Forum events, dozens of side events across our many working groups, as well as had a general presence around the site. As a result, we have observed the direct positive impacts, with COP28 creating reverberating change in all strands, from adaptation to mitigation and implementation. But changes are still not being enacted quick enough, and at this rate, we will overshoot 1.5. With that said, with continued focus on youth inclusion and stakeholders openly embracing our ideas, such as with the dedicated energy negotiations track I have an experience with from the Youngo Energy Working Group, we can ensure we create lasting change that will not only protect our generation, but also for our children and their children. I am in solidarity with the wider youth movement in hoping that this COP will set a precedent for future COPs in a continued increase in meaningful youth engagement. I am in solidarity with my Youngo peers and expecting that a fair and equitable YCC decision is put into place for future COPs to ensure continued efficiency in our work. I am in solidarity with the young people COP has not yet represented and expecting stakeholders will wildly increase their climate action ambition to keep 1.5 alive. More than ever, young people are qualified and willing to catalyze action. The world can enjoy the dividends youth engagement pays, so I call on stakeholders to include us in a meaningful capacity, just like this COP has attempted to do, in order to access these dividends.
Thank you all for your remarks. We will now open the floor for questions to media. Please don't forget before you begin to state your name, your media outlet, and who your question is addressed to. Gentleman in the second row.
Thank you. I'm Alistair Thompson from Scoop Media. I've got a question to address to the youth delegates who are here, since you are the people that this conference is being held for. And it's about...
Sorry, who is your question addressed to?
To all of the three youth delegates. So, and the question relates to their impressions as to where we currently are in this process. In particular, there was a quite big contrast between what the ambassador just described before in terms of financial numbers of things which have been achieved here, and what John Kerry talked about, which was $1.4 trillion of finance, private sector finance, being available to be invested in CCS and and nuclear in particular. So, I mean, I'd like to know what the youth delegates think about the fact that we are seeing large amounts of investment here in fossil fuel companies, changing their planned sort of like, I don't know, profile of how they're planning on generating electricity, but mainly investing in themselves rather than in the planet.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me answering and quickly, and then I'll let our colleagues to reply. I think it's unprecedented, the level of finance that we've managed to see that was contributed by partners, by parties, by countries, and I think that it's very, very clear how much countries and parties and partners are stepping up to show their solidarity in addressing climate change. Your question was specifically about private sector and how we mobilize it. We know from our engagement around the world that mobilizing the private sector, particularly in the global south, has been an issue for many, many years. And what we've done here in the UAE has made a step towards how we do that mobilization. Our finance framework is a real turning point, I think, when it comes to the finance discussion. We know the COP process has for a long time not included ministers of finance. We need to have that governmental support, that public finance, and then we need that to leverage the private sector. But we also need the policy frameworks in place so that those investments can reach those communities, can reach the young people in their countries. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done by many different parties, but we've seen the start of that here at COP28. Our private fund, Altera, is about bridging that gap between the public and the private sector and getting mobilized. But we know that there's a lot more, and you're exactly right, and those who talk about it. We need to go from hundreds of billions to trillions of investment, and our COP presidency has been causing all year for this mobilization of the private sector as we go forward, so that we are empowering everybody to take the action that they need.
I just want to maybe relay the voice of youth that we've heard through several consultations. And one thing that was very interesting, it's the first time that we've had over 105 countries host regional conferences of youth and local conferences of youth. And what was relayed by young people is climate finance needs to be fixed. There needs to be a proper architecture. And we are so privileged and grateful that COP28 started that. So that's from the voice of youth and the perspective of their optimism. But on the other side, you mentioned companies and them also being on the table. One thing that youth showed and showcased at the Conference of Youth and in the past dialogues is their hope and love that everyone is on the table and everyone will do their part. And they've never seen this kind of inclusion and this unified front of private sector, public sector, all together. And we noticed it even in maybe the different peaceful protests that happened. They were speaking one language. And that gives us hope. And hope is to recognize that we have the power as young people to protect what we love.
Thank you. Next question. Lady in the first row.
My name is Megan Rowling, Reuters. I'd like to ask Marlena and Rushil, what would you like to see coming out of this conference, specifically in the final decision? What's the most important thing for the pair of you? And Ambassador, could you tell us what's going to be done in order to rescue the negotiations on the global goal on adaptation, which have basically not progressed at all? And I'm hearing a lot of people are quite worried about that. But if the two youth delegates could answer first, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think a lot of youngers' demands are represented by the GYS, but individually, I would think that the energy transition ambition has to be wildly increased at this COP, because this COP represents a series of tipping points. And we've seen that with youth engagement. This COP has set a precedent, and I think future COPs will continue to increase youth engagement, but I believe that we have not yet reached that precedent in the energy transition, and I think this COP has a lot of possibility and openness to make that a reality. So.
Yes, I'm going to follow up. So with our delegates program, we have been very fortunate to undergo like intense over 5 months of training, and so that's very good. But like when we reached this stage at COP, we wanted more meaningful engagements and inclusions in the policy decision making. But I guess through the Global Youth Statement, we have our demands given out to the world. So I think this is. Yep.
Just to add, that Global Youth Statement had 750,000 young people contributing to it from over 160 countries. Never before. And never before has the Global Youth Statement been presented to the presidency. It always happens in the Conference of Youth and people forget it, let's be very honest, right? No one even reads it. Today, the UAE really ensures that young people's voice is communicated and even shared with negotiations teams. Other than that, it's not just the Global Youth Statement, and sorry, I want to mention, young people were able to be in the interim negotiations, so they were able throughout the whole year, it's not just the 2 weeks of COP. Before that, at Bonn, at Petersburg, at Africa Climate Week, at Latin America Week as well. The UAE has funded these delegates to go there and to be trained and to share their voice. So whether it was adaptation, whether it's loss and damage, whether it's technology, whether it's education, they were able to share their voice. And we are so grateful for this kind of true engagement.
Just to answer, if I may add to your question about adaptation, our COP presidency has been very clear that we need progress across the board, that we need a holistic package that we come out from at COP28. Adaptation is one area that needs work, and we have, please come to our ministerial pairings at 12 o'clock. We have a focus on that as part of the pairings. We also are calling on the negotiators to roll their sleeves up this week and deliver the outcomes that we can all be proud of. We want COP28 to be ambitious across the board on mitigation, adaptation, means of implementation. We've set the standard last week. Now we need the negotiators to come forward and deliver the outcomes that we need to see, and I'm confident that they will step up to that challenge.
Thank you, Ambassador Majid. We'll take a last question. Lady in the first row.
Okay. Salam, my name is Aisha. I'm from Bahrain and part of International Youth Climate Delegates. First, thank you for expanding the youth participation in this conference. It's really like an achievement in many ways. I noticed that some of the conferences and some of the negotiations, they don't include sign language translations and subtitles. So my question is, how do you included the Deaf Youth Society and COP28?
I think maybe Alex, do you want to go for that? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. It's actually a very good question. And I think we need to look into this issue to improve that for next year.
Thank you. With that, that's all the time that we have for questions today. I'd like to express our gratitude for our speakers and for everyone here with us that joined us today. Please do join us at 12:30 for our COP28 Presidency press conference. And if you have any further inquiries, please share with our media team who are here with us in the room. Thank you once again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for your time. And I hope you enjoy the last few days of COP28, and I hope you enjoy the UAE.